As we speak, a new Dragon Ball game is either being planned or developed, and I wanted to go over what this game could potentially be and if we'll see a brand new release in 2026. The next big Dragon Ball game project. Let's finally talk about this. Now, I've done a couple of videos discussing what the potential next big game could be, or just the next game in general, and there are so many different possibilities of what a new Dragon Ball game could entail. It could be a fighting game. It could be, another action adventure RPG, an open world game, Xenoverse 3 style, like what is it, MMO? Like there's a lot of different genres out there, and Dragon Ball is no stranger to dipping their toes into some type of crazy genre, okay? As you guys are aware, the 2025 Dragon Ball game that we are getting for this year is Dragon Ball Gekkoushun Squadra, which is a 4v4 MOBA similar to League and Pokemon Unite. Now, this is a very unique style of game for Dragon Ball. We've never had a game like this before for the Dragon Ball series in the past. There was one game that I don't even know what's going on with it, that I think it was out like last year as like a beta. It was an anime MOBA, so Goku was in it. I believe Vegeta was in it, as well as Android 18 and like Frieza. There were like a couple of Dragon Ball characters, so that was the closest thing we got to a MOBA that had Dragon Ball related characters. But it was a full anime collab type of game, okay? And that might be dead by now. I don't even know, but because it is Dragon Ball and it is using the Dragon Ball IP, it's going to be a lot more popular, a lot more successful. But this is a spin-off game, okay? They could be advertising it or trying to push for it being a major release because it will be on consoles. But to me, this seems to be just more of a spin-off game. It's by Gunbodion, which generally has done spin-off games in the past for Dragon Ball. They also developed Dragon Ball Fusions, which phenomenal game. I think it's one of the best Dragon Ball games ever made. However, it was meant to be a spin-off because it was on the Nintendo 3DS. So when you make it exclusive like that, it doesn't really, sell too well, right? But let's go ahead and move back over to what the next project could be. Now, I just made this with Photoshop. This isn't real. There's no confirmed next project yet. We don't know. We'll see. But when I say next project, I mean the next big Dragon Ball game, okay? The one that's going to be selling millions of copies, probably on launch, right? Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, Dragon Ball FighterZ, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, and Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. Those are the biggest Dragon Ball games ever made in history, and we're likely going to be getting another one of those types of games probably within the next few years, right? I'm going to say 2026 is a good time just because, like I said, right now we have a spin-off game, and I want to go over the kind of the history and reasonings on why we could be getting a game. So I want to switch gears here. Let's go over the history of Dragon Ball games. Now, generally, as you guys are probably aware, we get a brand new Dragon Ball game almost every single year, okay? It's usually every couple of years, but generally Bandai, to I guess keep the IP, and I still don't know if this is true or not. This, was definitely true in the past. Bandai Namco would have to have some type of new release for a Dragon Ball game, have Dragon Ball in the title. They would have to do it every single year in order to keep it and renew, I guess, the license for it or whatever it may be, right? Now, Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 was, I would say, the first big major Dragon Ball game, or if you want to even consider Xenoverse 1 to be in there. These just came out so close together, it was a 1 year difference, right? Xenoverse 1 came out in 2015, and Xenoverse 2 came out literally a year later in 2016, which is a very fast thing, okay? That was the last game that really did the, yearly sequel type of release. You guys remember the Budokai games? There was a new game each year, and then when it came to Tenkaichi, they had a new game every single year as well until Tenkaichi 3, and then we didn't really see anything after that until, Burst Limit, Raging Blast, and all that stuff, right? So now we're kind of in more of the modern age, and this is what I would consider the modern age of the big Dragon Ball games, okay? This is currently, I would say, the big four that's out there that is selling millions and still selling copies as we speak, okay? And as we speak, there is likely a new Dragon Ball game either being developed or even in the planning stages, okay? Like I said, Sparking Zero had, 5 years of development time? And it could have been even longer, or planning, development. There's so many years that probably went into the, creation of Sparking Zero, right? Now, that's where things got kind of crazy because every 2 years we did get a new game. Xenoverse 2, like I said, 2016. FighterZ, 2 years later, was 2018. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, another 2 years later, 2020. But then what happened, right? What happened? We were doing good for every 2 years, and then it took 4 years to see another big release. Now, granted, we did have a release 2 years in between, which was Dragon Ball The Breakers, but again, that's a side game. That's a spin-off game, okay? And I can't remember the specifics of it. I think they were re-releasing Fighters, Xenoverse 2, and Kakarot on Switch, so that counted as that kind of like, you know, keeping the IP, right? It wasn't a new game, but it was new for the Switch, right? It was still considered a new game for that console, so they could re-release it and maybe have some extra additions, some different things in there that would, you know, entice people to purchase the Switch version, okay? Obviously, the biggest seller for that, okay, the main thing, why would you purchase it on Switch is because you can play it handheld, right? But when it came to, you know, these games, they, for the most part, would release every couple of years, and Sparking Zero was definitely a different case, and they could be moving in this direction to where they're going to make a more higher-end games depending on how you perceive Sparking Zero, if you think it's an unfinished game or a bad game or whatever. It was definitely a high-budget game, okay? They put a lot of resources, time, and development into this game. Again, what Dragon Ball game has over 180 characters base fucking roster at launch with additional DLC? This game is going to have over 200 characters with DLC. No Dragon Ball game, other than if you want to consider Dokkan Legends, which I'm not even going to count those because the development time for that and how mobile games are, it's not on the level of Sparking Zero. I know people will say, oh, well, Legends looks so much better, right? Or how does it look like a better game than Sparking Zero? Well, you ain't a developer, right? So we can't speak on that, but let's be real. Let's be so for real. Sparking Zero was definitely much higher budget, had a lot of stuff put into it. The promotion for it went crazy, so a lot of money was spent on promotion as well. Like, this was the big game, okay? This was the 40th anniversary game, and I think it is deserving of that title, right? But games like Kakarot and Fighters and Xenoverse 2, right? They seem to, obviously, they absolutely had a lot of development time put into those, right? But maybe not as much as Sparking Zero, just because of how crazy, you know, this shit went, right? Like, again, 4 years it took for them to, between the games in terms of a release, right? So it is always possible that they're moving in a more, you know, higher end direction with these games, and it's not going to be releasing every year or even every couple of years. It's going to be taking much longer for them to make a better game, okay? And again, I know people are going to say Sparking Zero is not, you know, that game or whatever, unfortunately for some people. Okay, I think it was definitely a good game. There are things about it that I wish that they, you know, polished up maybe, or even had more additions to and expanded the game a little bit more, other than just focusing on the characters. But that seems to be what their direction was. They wanted to focus on a Dragon Ball game that had the animations iconic from the series, big roster, and then everything else was kind of just like secondary stuff that they were like, we'll put a little bit into it, but, you know, the main focus is 180 characters, okay? And that's always been what the Tenkaichi series was about. It was never focused on story. It was never focused on really anything else. It was focused on big roster, good, you know, gameplay mechanics for, you know, the Dragon Ball fighting experience, and that was pretty much it, right? So we're going to shift gears here. Let's talk about why we probably won't be getting a huge anime game like Xenoverse or like Sparking Zero, okay? We might have some like in between that are a little bit more like Kakarot or Fighters, okay? Those are fighting games, right? But they're not like, I would say the big heavy hitters, the big sellers are usually going to be an arena fighter, right? Again, people are going to be like, oh, I'm tired of arena fighters and everything, but let's be so fucking for real. Those are the ones that are most successful, right? And even like a 2D fighter will be very successful as well, like Dragon Ball FighterZ. Okay, currently, right now, Xenoverse 2 and Fighters are the best-selling, top-selling Dragon Ball games of all time. Last we heard was over 10 million copies sold. For an anime game, that's incredible. And Sparking Zero could definitely get up there. Right now, I think they're at like 5.5 or 5.3 million or whatever sold, and it hasn't even been a full year yet. So Dragon Ball Sparking Zero could be on track as long as they keep supporting the game for releasing stuff, okay? But the reason why I'm bringing up this image here is usually if they're going to do a huge game like these, a new anime has to come, you know, into fruition. It has to be there to help promote. Like, they got to go hand in hand to promote the game and, you know, the anime, right? So for Xenoverse 2, that anime was Dragon Ball Super, okay? Dragon Ball Super was pretty fresh, only a year old by the time Xenoverse 2 came out, so we can consider it around the same time as Xenoverse 1 because they both, you know, released in 2015, right? So that Dragon Ball Super, it really extended the amount of like video games that could release that promoted the anime as well, okay? That went hand in hand, right? We had Legends in between that, Dokkan at the same time, There was, what else? Fighters and Kakarot, right? But mainly Fighters, okay? Kakarot was more Z-focused, and they were trying to focus on the Z story, so that you can't really count because it's not really a lot of Dragon Ball Super in there, other than if you want to count Battle of Gods and Resurrection F or whatever, okay? But yeah, Xenoverse 2 was definitely that game that Super fed Xenoverse 2 for years, and it's still feeding Xenoverse 2 even to this day, okay? Almost 9 years later, and Xenoverse 2 is still getting Dragon Ball Super characters, which is fucking crazy to me, but, you know, that's what it is, and I digress, okay? Now, when it came to Sparking Zero, what was the anime, the big anime that it was promoting, even on launch? It literally, Sparking Zero and Daima came out on the same day, okay? On the same exact day. That's how you know they were, like, trying to push this anime and the new game for the 40th anniversary like crazy, right? So, yeah, Dragon Ball Daima was definitely that game. And what are the last 2 DLC packs going to be? Dragon Ball Daima related, okay? And again, it remains to be seen, you know, we don't know what's going to happen in the future if there's going to be more DLC after this, okay? We'll just have to wait. All we can do is speculate. But yeah, we probably won't get a big game like for example, we won't get Xenoverse 3 likely until they drop a new anime, which could be the new Dragon Ball Super Season 2, Moro and Granola arcs, or whatever is going to come after that, if there's going to be anything, or they just make a brand new anime like they did with Daima, okay? And that might be the case because Shueisha's a big old bitch, and there's that, you know, struggle going on between, you know, the rights and shit. I don't even know. With Toriyama passing, there's so much uncertainty with the series. We've talked about it a million times. It really does suck, but Ioku's kind of, I guess, way of making an anime without touching anything related to the manga, because Shueisha's like, fucking, it's mine, I'm gonna do whatever I want with it, fuck Shueisha. But yeah, with Capsule Corporation, I can't even speak, Capsule Corporation Tokyo, Ioku being, you know, the main guy for that, he can make his, in a sense, like, you know, get a new anime out there that is just an original story, okay? Now, the thing is, Toriyama is not here anymore, so I don't know how that would be, if who would be writing that or even coming up with ideas for that. Obviously, Ioku is a part of that, but I don't know. Is Toyotaro even going to be helping with that or not? I don't know. I just think the next direction should they just need to fucking get their shit together, figure it out, and just bring back Dragon Ball Super, okay? There's material that's been there for years, okay? Eventually, it's going to be decades, right? Without an anime. So let's not get to that point, okay? Let's get that new anime out here within the next couple of years so that we can get a new brand, like a brand new video game, like a Xenoverse 3, okay? Or, for example, like a Fighters 2, okay? So I wanted to go over ideas from the community, you guys, what you would want to see as a next Dragon Ball game that doesn't necessarily need a new anime in order to, you know, have a new game coming out, because we'll definitely be getting, like I said, a Dragon Ball game probably every year, every couple of years, but the biggest game, like a Sparking Zero or Xenoverse 2, we probably won't be getting that for a long time until a new anime comes out, right? So I made this post a couple of days ago, and it definitely made its rounds. So I said, it's crazy to think that the next big Dragon Ball game is likely being developed or planned right now, as I stated at the beginning of the video. What type of game would you guys want to see? Now, these are... These are just images, guys. A lot of people were like, oh, Sparking Zero 2, that's not going to be the title. Dragon Ball Fighters 2, they don't even, they're working on the new Marvel game or whatever. Arc System isn't going to be doing that. We already have Budokai Force, Infinite World. Like, these are just fucking images. So, like, just don't worry about that too much, really. I just wanted ideas, okay? So we have people like Goresh and Nano that actually replied with their ideas for stuff, which I really loved. So Goresh said, it'll never happen, probably. Never say never, right? But some kind of ultimate legacy of Goku game that goes from OG to the end of Super in a same but updated art style, okay? That's a great idea. I love that. And that could be a great game on Switch. And obviously, every console would benefit from having a game like this, okay? Maybe even keep the top-down view thing. They don't have to, okay? But another action RPG type of game, okay? But not Kakarot, okay? Kakarot, the way it plays is not Legacy of Goku, okay? Legacy Goku's all real time. There's no, oh, let's transition into a fight and have it be like a Final Fantasy kind of RPG, even though it's not turn-based, right? And even the original Legacy of Goku series was not a turn-based thing. It was just all real time. Like, you'd see an enemy, you'd beat the shit out of him, and then you level up, right? It was a great concept. It was so simple and straightforward, okay? It was until Buu Saga that they kind of leveled it up a little bit, made it a little bit more complex. Not really, but like for most people, it's very easy to understand. You could equip different types of equipment to make your character stronger. You had a level up system and stat distribution, okay? It was like a little mini tiny Xenoverse 2 in that aspect where it's like, oh, you could distribute your stats after leveling up and everything. Like, Xenoverse 2 has a great formula as well. Like, those games I feel like they do very well. Okay, Kakarot, I love the game and I think it's great and the gameplay is fun for the most part, but I just don't like that kind of like where it's like, okay, you're flying around, you see an enemy and you go near the enemy and it has to transition into a fight, okay? And it's not like exactly like a real-time based thing, okay? And a lot of people want to see like an open world type of game, but I feel like this type of game would be pretty easy, okay? Just have it from, OG Dragon Ball all the way up into Super. That's a lot of content, right? That's a long road, but I think that they could do it as long as it's not like a super heavy, game like for example, like Kakarot or even Sparking Zero, which a lot of development time and everything goes into that, right? I feel like they could make something like this, but a little bit more simple. Like, you know how they're like those spin-off Zelda titles, like what, Zelda Echoes of Wisdom and Link's Awakening or whatever that they had? That could be a type of thing where it's like, even though there is a lot of development time put into it, it's like a in-between release. Not necessarily, I would say, a spin-off, but it would be a release that a lot of people would be picking up, and a game like that could potentially sell millions, right? Now, this one is super unique, and I don't think we'd ever get something like this, but man, it is the coolest idea ever. Nano said a Devil May Cry style Trunks game that explores his full arc plus some, okay? Now, that is a very short window, right? And they could have extra stuff. So think about it like Dragon Ball Z Kakarot's Future Trunks story, but it's Devil May Cry style, okay? Which is a very unique, not unique, but like a different style of game, right? That shit would be amazing. I would buy that day one. Trunks is my favorite character. I think Trunks is popular enough to have his own game, and he's a unique character. He uses a sword, okay? It's a lot darker, his future timeline, compared to everything else in Dragon Ball. I would say Future Trunks is... his shit is as dark and as like modern new anime type of shit as you're gonna get, okay? When I say that, is like a lot of newer modern anime, they're not as lighthearted as some of these like older ones that we used to have, right? They definitely are darker, like Chainsaw Man, like JJK and shit. Those have more of a darker tone to them, right? Attack on Titan can be counted in that as well if you want to, but I'm just bringing those up as an examples, okay? It wasn't until we had like Don that it was a lot more fun. The animation was a lot more crazy and expressive and everything, right? But there can be some sad tones in there, right? But like I said, Future Trunks as a Devil May Cry style is genius. Like, why haven't they done that? Well, I know why, because it's a risky thing, right? Like I said, Dragon Ball does, they'll dab into different genres and stuff, but they usually just want to do like a fighting game for the most part, right? But we'll see. Okay, we'll see if that ever comes into fruition, okay? Now, Iron King, my boy, he is the GOAT. He knew exactly what I was looking for. Breakers 2. That's what we wanted, okay? There's no other game that can compete with it. Breakers 2 is #1 bestseller. It would be Game of the Year. Why haven't they made a Breakers 2? What the fuck? Breakers 1 was so successful, right? They're 8 seasons in, right? And so much content is coming in this game, like, all the time. Like, it's just like they just keep busting out content. Like, I don't even have time to play the game anymore. Like, I just stopped playing the game because there's just so much fucking content, right? But yeah, make it look exactly like the cinematic cutscenes. Take my wallet, Bandai, you bitches. I love Kelbert. Fighters 2. Yes, we would all love that, but unfortunately, I think it's gone, bro. I think it's gone. I was going to make a video talking about Fighters and just how it's like completely dead now, unfortunately. Like, it's actually dead. I know people do play it, but like there's no support for it anymore. It's ripped. But hey, Fighters 2, maybe one day. And it might not even be by Arc Sys. They could get a different developer, right? Who knows? I don't know what happened with this logo. It got fucking scuffed. It got butchered. Sparking 1. In all honesty, as much as I would love a sequel to Sparking 0, we don't need it anytime soon. Let's just focus on Sparking 0 and let's like, expand on that game, right? I'm not ready. Now, I say that and I would definitely spend another $110. I know you can shit on me. I don't care, whatever. It would be a new game. But let's be real, a lot of people don't want to spend another $70 to $100 again so soon after Sparking 0 dropped, okay? And a lot of these are jokes, right? Dokkan 2, right? Dragon Ball Super Focus, I can't even speak, Super Focus game for once. Can I just get a game that focuses on Dragon Ball Super arc only? Now, that's a great idea, and that's something that could release pretty quickly, okay? Because Dragon Ball Super isn't super long, but it's enough that it could be its own game, I think. So, like, for example, just make Dragon Ball Z Kakarot Super, in a sense, right? Because they haven't done that yet. And, again, they could just make it as DLC for Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, and that would be fine. I wouldn't mind that, okay? They're doing it with Daima, right? So, if you want to do it with Super, great. I'd be down. I'd be open for it. But I just feel like Super's it's pretty long. It's a lot longer than the 20-episode series for Daima. So, like, Daima makes sense as the DLC. I think Super could just be its own game, right? And it be a very detailed game, right? Sparking Zero, unfortunately, was not that game, okay? They skipped around a lot. There were things that I feel like were missing. It gave you a general idea of the Super story, but it's like, it just wasn't, like, give me a big, detailed game like Kakarot, but for Super, in a sense, right? Xenoverse 3 with Absolver's move learning / combo building system. I'm not sure. I've never played this game, or I can't even recall if I've heard of it. I know people are going to probably get mad at me for that, but what they're saying sounds good to me. New combo building system. I like that, right? Let's see here. People are saying Sparking, Fighters 2, Sparking Zero 2, no Kakarot 2, OG Dragon Ball game where it's like Kakarot. Yeah, that would, again, we kind of have something like Kakarot. They could just make DLC for the most part, and I'd be fine with it. It is what it is, right? We don't have to, get a new game, but it would be nice, right? Xenoverse 3, yes, Xenoverse 3. The ecosystem needs a Budokai 4. Yeah, I kind of wish we could go back, and I've made this comment millions of times. The next game I want is Xenoverse 3, obviously, but again, we're probably not getting that until a new anime comes. So if it's like an in-between game, I think we just need a new 2D/3D fighter, like a 2.5D fighter kind of game. So a game like Fighters or a game like Burst Limit or Budokai would be really nice. Now, the problem with Budokai and Burst Limit is it would likely be developed by Dimps, okay? And Dimps has got their hands full. They have so many games they're working on right now. And hopefully they are working on Xenoverse 3 and having that kind of like in the background. No confirmation of that. But if that is the case, there's no way that they could squeeze in a Budokai game, right? Or like another Burst Limit, right? So it would need to be some new developer. Obviously, it can't be Arc System Works because they're working on something else. And I don't even know. Like, I can't even think. Like, what are some really, really good fighting game developers out there? Like an actual traditional fighting game, okay? Mainly 2D for the most part. That you guys would like to see work on Dragon Ball. Okay? Because I'm telling you guys, there are tons of developers out there. And I imagine there are, hundreds of developers. Okay, maybe not that many. But there are a lot of developers out there that want to make a Dragon Ball game. Okay, that want to get their hands on that and partner with Bandai to make something big, because it generally will sell really well, okay? And I'm sure there are a lot of developers out there that are fans of the series that want to work on it, okay? Who knows? Who knows? Xenoverse, Budokai, Sparking, decided in that order. So most people are just saying Xenoverse 3 or Sparking Zero 2, which is crazy to think about, right? We'll talk about sequels. We talk about a sequel, and that's fine for discussion, but we don't need a Sparking Zero 2 like anytime soon. The next Sparking game, the next like Tenkaichi game, maybe we'll have to wait another 10 years for it, and that's fine. It is what it is. Just they need to focus on Sparking Zero and just, fix all that, right? Game and talent. I would love Fighters too, but Arc is working on the Marvel game, and I don't trust anyone but them to build a second game. I agree. I definitely agree. If we did get a Fighters game with the Fighters title and the Fighters style of gameplay that expands on everything that was good about Fighters and, like, I don't know, adds more characters, maybe new modes or whatever it may be, it would have to be Arc Sys. And I don't know if we'd ever get that, unfortunately. Unless the whole team is not working on other projects and they get everyone they need. Yeah, I don't think so. I think it might be a rip. I'm not expecting it. Mr. Satan RPG. Yeah, Attack of the Saiyans was a fun game, but I don't know. I don't see that really selling too well. I don't know. A lot of people... I feel like I've seen a lot of people say that they don't want to see a turn-based RPG for Dragon Ball. But I don't know. Do you guys want to say that or not? So I said the same thing on my YouTube. People saying Dragon Ball Fusions 2. Absolutely. That would be peak. New Dragon Ball Fusions game. Now, this one is really interesting, and I feel like they should have done this to hype up Sparking Zero even more, is release a Dragon Ball Budokai Tenkaichi HD collection. They did it for the original Budokai games, but not for this one. I think this would satisfy and please all the people that have been bitching about how Sparking Zero needs to be exactly like the OG Tenkaichi games. Just give them the HD Tenkaichi collection, and they can shut the fuck up finally. No hate. I understand you guys want the new game to be like the old games, but this is a new game, y'all. It's realistically, like, they've done everything I feel like they possibly can to make it as close to the old games, but it's like, it's just a new game. Like, let it be. It's a new game. You know what I mean? Like, with new mechanics and the way it plays, right? Again, I'm not trying to start any drama over that, but can we get Fighters 2? I want to juggle some Chaozu, right? Oh, God. Okay, again, Sparking Zero. Dragon Ball Z game where you create a character, choose a race, choose a lifestyle or origin. Xenoverse 3? Forging friendship, forging an alliance. That just sounds like Dragon Ball Online / Xenoverse 3, right? I've been saying the same 2 words for 8 years. Xenoverse 3. Hell yeah, bro. HD collection. Yeah, I think most people, they just want Xenoverse 3. I think most people just want Xenoverse 3 over any game. And I agree, just because it's long overdue. It's definitely the most expansive game for Dragon Ball, and it's got the most replay value. Let's be real. It really does, okay? As much as people will shit on Xenoverse and be like, oh, this game sucks and it looks like shit or whatever, y'all's ass be coming back to it every update. Most of y'all that like Dragon Ball games, you usually do come back to this game. Not everyone, but a lot of people do, right? So that's going to be it for this video. It was long. I wanted to yap a lot. Last couple of things that I did want to talk about in terms of like news, in a sense. I know this isn't related to Dragon Ball, but it is interesting. Apparently a new One Piece game is coming. I don't know when or what it's going to be, but there was a little announcement, I think, for like, I don't know if it's like one of the anniversaries or something for it. And then there's also Xbox Game Showcase. By the time this video is being uploaded, there is an Xbox Game Showcase today. Do not expect any Dragon Ball. We maybe could see that new One Piece game. We maybe could see a new anime game. But Dragon Ball, I don't see anything related to it coming. I would just keep your expectations extremely low or non-existent for this Xbox Game Showcase, because let's be real, they're probably just going to focus on Xbox exclusive games, and that's fine. I'm definitely going to be checking it out because I just love the feeling of new games being announced, even though I don't give a single fuck about 90% of them, right? But that's what I did. I sat there for 2 hours watching the Game Awards on Friday night, and I only liked like 2 games, honestly. But yeah, thanks for watching. Comment down below what new Dragon Ball game you want to see, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully we'll see a bigger, more, hype game. I'm not saying that Gekishin Squadron isn't hype. I'm excited for it. But for some people, not many people are on board with it. I could see it. I could see it from reactions and comments. A lot of people are like, not interested. I get it. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.
This is Broly, and you are watching SLOplays. Make sure to subscribe, or else I'll destroy your entire planet.